Hello and welcome to this episode of the Barbarian Investor Show. I'm your host, Adam Jason, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Greg Jarzabek, the CEO of TrustedHealth. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you very much, Adam, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. So let's get straight into it. TrustedHealth is, as you might expect from the name, focused on the medical sector.
Correct.
Now, there is an existing business here, so you're in the blockchain crypto space, but this is building on an existing business, which was called Trusted Doctor, right?
Correct. I would say not really building, but learning from experience I had with Trusted Doctor and building something greater, something bigger. I have to say, before I jump into what Trusted Doctor is actually, this is a kind of an idea to create a decentralized network of doctor specialists and create a dedicated platform so that patients can access the leading specialists around the world, irrespective where they are, especially focusing on difficult and life-threatening diseases. This idea or this concept wasn't something that I came up with naturally. I was actually forced to do that because I lost my mother to cancer, and I was faced with huge problems patients around the world face in those difficult diseases, such as misdiagnosis. They don't know where to go, who's the right specialist, and we all know that the expertise is not in one place. They have to travel long distances, they don't have the right data. So being faced with that and living this journey, I just wanted to help them in the way creating kind of a decentralized network of doctors that they could actually access. But rather than just being driven by the emotional edge, and I just wanted to make sure that there is a business behind, and that's why we created Trusted Doctor, and it was quite a huge success, being mentioned in BBC, ITV, and having gained a lot of doctors around the world in 3 diseases we piloted: brain cancer, lung cancer, and prostate cancer, that became part of this ecosystem.
Right, okay, so that's great. So, yeah, I mean, this whole med tech sector,
Correct,
which they call it, it seems very natural for us to interact with doctors now all over the world, particularly
True.
with the strain that we see on our own health system with the NHS.
True.
So the first kind of iteration of the platform was you going around and trying to find consultants and specialists around the world that could join the platform?
Correct.
Is that how it worked?
Yeah, we kind of we tried to specifically focus on difficult diseases where expertise matters and create some advisory boards so that patient can access them from the comfort of the home. And Trusted Health is kind of learning from this experience, creating something bigger. We're not just talking about the decentralized network of doctor specialists per disease, but also other healthcare service providers, so that the patient can actually access and choose the right treatment irrespective where they are. And that's, I believe, the future. That's where we should be, and that's where economically we should also progress to.
So you mentioned the decentralized network here. So how does the network actually maintain itself in terms of governance? What's the kind of decentralized element of it which lends itself to blockchain technology?
So the decentralized, what I mean here is having all the possible networks of doctors available from one place, from kind of like a platform. So you could virtually speak to the doctor. You could buy other services such as molecular tests, diagnostic tests, having them in one place. You could participate in clinical trials and share the data from the comfort of your home, being assured that it's protected and secure, and that's why it's one of application of blockchain we're using. Most of that we have for patients like 450 megabytes per data already. We estimate it will be, but from the experience we had that much, and it's very important that this data is secure. Number one. Number two is we want to create a standardized system of data that is interoperable, and I think that's very good application for blockchain. And number three, which is also very important, is actually the smart contracts. We want to engage patients, doctors, and providers to be part of this ecosystem, and that's why we're building smart contracts on that.
So you mentioned data protection, which is a very pertinent issue with, we've seen recent ransomware attacks. So there's a security aspect there, and the ability for people to actually transact through this system, which cryptocurrency offers, that was previously, not impossible, but it wasn't as simple and as easy to do. So Can you explain a bit about the token that's going to be the native token to the TrustedHealth platform, and how that works, and what the use cases are going to be?
Correct. So first, in order to make sure this ecosystem works, ecosystem of doctors, patients, and other providers, we made it possible with the token. And the token here has first it's a multifaceted utility. Number one is access rights token. So you have to have X number of tokens, stake X number of tokens to be part of the ecosystem as far as provider is concerned. Mm-hmm. And also as a patient or user, you have to have X number of tokens to access some of those specialized services. The other thing is it's kind of engagement tokens. So we want you to engage through the ecosystem. We want to upload more data to create more anonymized data. Mm-hmm. And if this data is being used by other providers, other research labs, that's also one of the reasons we do it, to have a massive, easy access to all the data out there. Mm-hmm. And then you get a token back. And it's also a payment token, so for the services you have there. And these are and last but not least, you can store the data on blockchain. So it will be also mainly for the providers the possibility to store the data. So that's meant for different utilities, and as I said, it's kind of multifaceted utility.
Yeah. So just to clarify there, so staking is essentially holding enough tokens in your wallet, which makes the system more robust, right? And
and creates the economy. It creates the economy, creates the pressure on the value of the upward pressure on the value of the token. The more providers come part of the ecosystem, and you have to think about it, how big the ecosystem can be. So right now, the market is huge. We're talking about 350 million people living with life-threatening, difficult diseases. We're talking about 7,000 different diseases where you have to have expertise from different parts of the world. So if you build a network per disease, you have more providers for every disease. So the more diseases we build, or we cover, to express properly, then more tokens are being taken out of the system, out of the exchanges, and it creates kind of like a flowing ecosystem with the upward pressure on the price of the token.
Crypto economics, okay.
Correct.
And presumably this platform, TrustedHealth, provides a way for specialists around the world to interact with each other in a way which wasn't previously really possible before.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that's one of the reasons I found out with my experience in cancer is that in difficult disease in special medicine, it's not about just one doctor. You have to collaborate. You have to create multidisciplinary teams. It's been proven in research papers that multidisciplinary teams are actually having better outcomes for patients. So yes, we want on the platform, on this ecosystem, doctors to be part of the same conversation, whether from different parts of the world, in case it's needed, for the better health benefit of patients.
So I'm curious to know if you have any metrics or you've done any testing to see the increase in efficiency of a consultation from home as opposed to having to go in, in terms of waiting times, in terms of getting a correct diagnosis, or getting the correct medications and things like that.
Yeah, so there is some statistics. So for example, in 88% of the patients who seek second opinion worldwide, the diagnosis and treatment are being changed, and it's actually U.S. statistics.
Wow.
And we're talking also U.S. as well as other countries. So, and on average, 20% of people in the world are misdiagnosed. We're talking about average disease. We're talking about more difficult diseases. You're talking about 45%. So when you look at, what's the advantage of virtual conversation or physical conversation? So, coming from a banking industry where I was there for 10 years as a trader, I simply cannot believe that in the globalized world like we have today, where you book a hotel room from internet wherever you want, if you book a car or you buy a car from just one click away, we're still very localized in healthcare. Very much localized. We still assume ceteris paribus that every doctor is the same, but it's not the truth, and we know that they should collaborate. So that's the whole idea about creating this ecosystem where it's kind of like democratized access to this, to the right diagnosis, to the right expertise, and the statistics say that for ages, for centuries, we haven't changed how doctors and patients collaborate. And we don't want to change it either. We created most of the competitors out there in this world are kind of written opinions, but we tried with our Trusted Health kind of replicate what doctors patients do. They see each other, they see the data, and we want to cover at least 70% of the cases that you can actually replicate virtually. Whether you see the doctor, see the patient, see the data, you can follow up. So that's exactly the whole idea.
Yeah, so it's easing the workload on doctors as well, which is a big issue as well at the moment, and also giving access to people in maybe developing countries that just simply don't have access to medical treatment at all.
True, and it's you would think developing country is probably the first aim, or countries where medical tourism is very high. But even if you think about UK, I believe right now all hospitals in the UK, NHS, they have to be more economically viable. And then I know from experience that many commissioners decide to decrease the face-to-face consultations in hospitals in the UK, and that's where virtual consultation should come, because not every patient should come to the hospital. Many things could be done outside, which will increase the efficiency and it will increase the return on the capital of hospitals.
Okay, so one last word on the token quickly. It makes sense that the doctors, the specialists, will earn tokens, and you've also alluded to other ways that they can be incentivized. But patients themselves can actually earn tokens, earn cryptocurrency by sharing their data, essentially, by sharing their kind of medical records, medical information.
And also, one thing is uploading the data, because we want to create this repositorium of anonymized data in difficult diseases. How cool it would be, imagine if in Kawasaki disease or any other cancer, you as a patient could see X number of cases that have been out there in a pathway that happened. That would be very informative and very important, empowering for the patient. So that's how they can earn the tokens and stake the tokens. But the other thing is also that we want to really digitalize patient work as well. So if creating those patient hubs around different diseases, the more they work, the more they engage, we would like them to give them back the token.
And create the community around it. Fantastic. So what's the token going to be called?
TDH.
TDH.
It's Trusted Health.
Trusted Health token. Okay, great. And in terms of the ICO is actually ongoing. So the public crowd sale, people can currently buy TDH tokens. Can you give us an idea of the fundraising plans? How much you're looking to raise? And what are the plans to use the funds for?
We're trying to be, I would say, in the current market, kind of nimble. We're looking for 7,500 ethers. We did the pre-sale. We had 1/3 of it already, and we're trying to raise up to 7,500 ethers, which will allow us to grow what we really want to do. We aligned. I come from financial industry, so we have the X numbers of tokens within the company, and we aligned the way that if we execute what we really want to execute, and we want to grow the token, the value of the token, this will give us a lot of value in the future to also develop further. So with any product contributing, we try to we have this kind of policy to be engaged and to be aligned with the current contributors.
Okay, so you can contribute in ETH?
In Ether.
Okay.
It's just in Ether.
Just in Ether,
and we're raising in Ethers, yes.
Okay, understood. So it's operating on the Ethereum blockchain. And I understand you're working with Coincilium as advisors. So what's that relationship like? How have they kind of supported Trusted Health?
I'm very glad they accepted us and they are happy to help us. I think, from in the current world, you need advisors, you need people who can save you time in many different setups of startups, of ICOs, and that's why we partnered with Coincilium. And also having such an advisor, we're looking also for partnership with others, because I think in the current ICO world is all about partnerships and merging some different ideas and collaborating again, rather than just doing everything on its own. And of course, speaking to the right contributors as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of innovation in the medical sector, so it's really exciting times. Okay, so TDH, just to go over it again, it's available. The crowd sale ends on
end of month.
End of this month. Okay. So we look forward to keeping track of it, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you again soon.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for the conversation.